back to Sprague Homestead. So a few weeks ago I talked about the price of eggs and how to figure out your price that you're spending on your homegrown eggs. So today we're going to talk about meat chickens. Basically we're going to be looking at how the feed to meat conversion kind of works out when you're doing Cornish cross. I know there are a lot of other choices you can use for meat chickens. You can use Freedom Rangers, Pioneers, just a whole bunch of different stuff. Several of the hatcheries now have a slower growing Cornish cross, but these are just going to be the standard traditional Cornish cross meat birds. And we're going to be using numbers from our raising of them this last fall. So you'll kind of have to, as we go through, make adjustments based on the price that you're paying for stuff, because of course our feed prices and yours are probably going to be a little different. Okay, so to start out with, when we started ours this last year, we ordered in 51 chicks. Okay, we were paying, I think they were $1.67 a piece, for a total of $85.17. Now I realize this is pretty cheap. We buy from a local hatchery here in Oregon called Jenks Hatchery. It's a couple hours from here, but they can overnight us birds. And with, how they usually do it is the more you buy, the cheaper they are. So we buy 51, which bumps us up into the next price bracket, which brought the price down. Now I have 100 chicks coming this year, and the price is a little higher due to demand. So I think I'm paying this year like $1.77 or $1.80. But for last year, we bought 51 at $1.67, which worked out to about $85.17. Now, as I said, we did this on an all commercial diet. So the first thing that we did is we bought a bag, just one bag, of chick starter. Now, some feed will actually tell you to start right with the broiler. I don't do that. The overall protein percentage between chick starter and broiler feed isn't very much. Our chick starter is a 20% protein. Broiler feed, the one that we buy, is 21%. So there's not a lot of difference. But the reason that I use a chick starter, the pieces tend to be smaller. Especially for us, most of our broiler we can only get in pellets. We were able to get a couple of bags of crumbles when they were still pretty small. But this makes sure that the pieces are little. This also gives you the option that if you want to do a medicated feed, now I don't use a medicated feed, but if you want to, the biggest time that they're going to need a medicated feed is in the first couple of weeks. Even this many chicks, 51, is going to take a couple of weeks to go through a whole bag of chick starter. So if you want to use a medicated feed, now is the time to do it. It's in this very first bag. It'll get you through the first couple of weeks where they have the most issues, and you can come out the other side and go straight to a broiler feed. So we went through one 50-pound bag of starter, because for us, everything that we can buy is in 50-pound bags. If you're going to do like 25 of these and you can't get a 25-pound bag of starter, some brands make it, some don't, I would still go with a bag of starter. It'll take you a little bit longer, but like I said, the protein percentages are close enough that it's not going to do you any harm. Okay, I'm going to cheat and grab my notebook here because the numbers get a little wild. Okay, so most chickens, they tell you that you're going to raise them up to 6 to 8 weeks. We found that the Cornish cross do the best at about 8 weeks because, of course, I've got to have a big enough spot to get my hand in for butchering. I don't like them at 6 weeks. I think they're too small. And the feed conversion rate on these guys really doesn't drop until they hit 12 weeks. The biggest reason to do them early, the longer you hold them, the more mortality you have. And in this example, what actually happened to us last fall is I had to go to some rabbit shows. I did some conventions. I did all kinds of stuff. So we actually held ours all the way to 11 weeks, which was kind of wild. So what we ended up doing over 11 weeks is on top of this bag, we went through 14 bags, 50-pound bags of broiler feed, which is 700 pounds of feed. Now for us, our feed ranged wildly, because during the summer especially, and it was kind of late summer when we got them, a lot of feed stores put things on sale. So ours ran from $14 to $17.45 a bag. I mean, it was a pretty big window. And part of that is the feed store that I usually get from had sold out, so I had to go get some from a different store, which is more expensive. So, but it still kind of gives you an idea. So, of these, we ended up spending $235.52 just in feed. And that's not counting this one here, which was a $16 bag of feed. So what that works out to, now we lost some, which is pretty typical. We had 3 or 4 dead ones in the box, and due to demand, they couldn't replace them. And then we lost a few here and there as we went. So we actually ended up with 42 chickens by the time we made it all the way to butcher. Now, when you're doing a batch, I think it's most cost effective to just add everything in. It gives you a total group price. So even though not all of these chicks made it, we still count the 85-17. Even though we fed chicks that later died, both here and here, we add everything together. So overall, we ended up spending $320.69. Which I'm guessing now that I look at it, I think that actually was part of that. So we ended up spending $320.69 for everything, for the birds and all of the feed. So how does this work out? Well, like I said, we butchered ours really late. So at 11 weeks, our average size was 9 pounds. They were big birds. Now, dress out percentage on your Cornish cross is going to vary a little bit. They tell you 80% is pretty much your live weight to carcass weight. What we found is it kind of varies a little bit. Some of them were about 75%, some of them were about 80%. So assuming 75%, you are getting a carcass that is 6 3/4 pounds. Okay. Now, granted, there's still bone in there, but for most of us homesteaders, we end up taking the bone by the time it's all over and making bone broth and stuff. So I still consider it, a worthwhile endeavor. So this $6.75 feed and everything cost us price of chicks, price of feed. To make this 6 3/4, we spent $7.64. Now, is that worth it? Now, here's where we're going to find out. So I went to the grocery store because we don't buy chicken, so I had to look. So we went to 3 different grocery stores, and we found that right now the average for a whole chicken is running about $1.19 a pound. Okay, we've seen it go on sale for 97 cents here, but right now what I could find was about $1.19. So at $1.19, that $7.64 bird is costing you $8, $8.03. So is that worth it? I like to think so because I know exactly what's going into the birds. As long as I feel comfortable with the feed that I'm using, and like I said, this is just on a commercial feed diet, I think that's still pretty good. Our goal here is always to try and be comparable to the grocery store prices. Yes, maybe it's going to be a little bit more. Sometimes it's going to be a little less, but this is pretty comparable, at least to me. If we had done them in 8 weeks, now we had kind of spot checked some of these guys just to kind of see what their weights were. At the time, now this is 11 weeks when we actually butchered. At 8 weeks, they were averaging about 6.5 pounds. I'm going to make a mess of this board. Kanan's going to come in and be like, what'd you do in my shop? Anyway, so they were about 6.5 pounds, which is going to yield you a carcass that is 4.875 pounds. And at that point, we had spent, let's see, it looks like $5.79 a bird. Okay? That's feed and chick price. So then we had an overall of, looks like $243.18 total. So when we figure out the $1.19 price again on these birds, we are looking at roughly $5.80. Okay, so $5.80 on 8-week-old birds. So have we made our money back? Well, we broke even. Basically, for what it cost us to input, we pretty much got it right back out. Now, of course, this isn't paying you anything for your labor, your time, or anything like that. But that gives you an idea that you're not exactly going backwards. Now, for most of us that don't freeze them whole, and Kane and I do not freeze them whole. The reason that we don't is there's two of us. If I take one of these immense chickens that were 6 3/4 pounds and cooked one, it would feed us for over a week. I don't know about everybody else, but we get a little bit of fatigue there. I don't want to eat chicken every day for a week. I just don't. We have lots of other things around here. You know, we've got venison and we've got elk and we've got rabbit meat and turkey and all the rest. So I don't want to eat this every single day. So I part mine out. When you go ahead and you part them out, what you're going to find is specialty cuts. And these are just some of the prices I got at the grocery store. Legs were going for $1.99 a pound. Wings were going for $3.69 a pound. Boneless, skinless chicken breasts were going for $4.99 a pound. So when you start looking at some of this, yes, we're only doing $1.19 here when we're talking about doing them whole. But if you're actually cutting them up, taking the time to make them separate individual meals, yes, it takes a little bit more. What you actually find is you're saving substantial amounts of money. But then it's all about how you want to do it. If you've got a family of 4, maybe doing whole chicken is 1, easier, and 2, something that you can go through pretty quickly. Like I said, for a family of 2 of us and a couple of puppy dogs, doing a whole chicken, especially at this size, doesn't really work for us. It's just too much, and I'm too likely to waste, and we don't like waste around here. Now, I know some people are going to look at it and say, 1, if you're feeding organic, you know, the prices are going to go up. Yes, that's true. But try and find some organic chicken in the store, and what you're going to find is that the prices are much, much higher than $1.19 a pound as well. So you can kind of play with these numbers based on what your feed costs are and based on what your chick cost is. I know the Coastal this year was selling the Cornish cross for like $1.97 to $2.49 depending on shipment. So depending on how many you get and what your overall feed is, you know, things might vary. Now, if you're thinking, well, I can do this cheaper if I'm grass feeding them, yes, to a point you can. You can drop your feed costs by about 25%. Remember that chickens can only take in 1/4 of their diet in actual grass. Weeds and bugs and all the rest of it will kind of play with that. The other thing to know is the Cornish cross was developed specifically on this high protein 20% diet, right? So when you start introducing things like grass, vegetables, bugs, things like that, remember that the growth rate is going to slow down. Now, in these guys, that's not always a bad thing. The biggest number 1 killer in these Cornish cross tends to be their hearts giving out or joint problems that pretty much render them useless. So, you know, if you slow them down a little bit, you might get more of them to make it all the way to butcher weight, and you might not. They're just kind of a genetically weak bird. There's a reason why they tell you 10, 12 weeks is max. But we'll have a video coming up here in a couple weeks. I have chicks coming in. We are doing some commercial birds this year. And thank you to everybody who got right on that and sent us deposits. We actually Took deposits on 80 out of the 100 that we ordered in about 3 or 4 days. So all of our birds this year are going to be sold out. Next year, if all goes well this fall, we might do some more next year, but we're only going to do 100 this year. We didn't want to overcommit because we're only 2 people. So butchering 100 birds is a lot. Luckily, we have a plucker and all the equipment and have been doing it for a while. But we're going to have a video when my birds show up. They are expected to be here the week of June 9th. So as soon as they come in, we'll do another video talking about our feed strategy and how we actually feed our birds to try and minimize some of the losses that other people get. You know, like they'll tell you to feed them all the time. We don't do that. We do kind of a 12 on, 12 off kind of thing. But we'll talk about that coming up. If you have questions, if you find problems in my math, which some of you slick folks usually do, leave the comments down in the comments section, questions, and I will try and get back to you. This has just been our experience with it. Like I said, there are things you can do to lower the costs, or maybe the costs are going to be higher. Maybe you're going to find out that where you are, maybe it's not as cost effective as it was for us. These are numbers that you probably want to sit down and look at before you order your chickens, because nobody likes to do it and then find out that, you know, it was a total money waster. We always say in regular chickens to count on a 10% loss from whatever you order. I have found over the years with these Cornish cross, it depends wildly on what time of year that you get them, what hatchery you're getting them from, and where you're getting your feed from. I actually figure my losses out at 20%, which was about right this time. In years past, we've only lost 1 or 2. So it kind of does depend. But when you're doing your numbers, I would count on a 20% loss. Anything better than that, or any less than that, is just money in the bank, so to speak. So that is it for today from Sprague Homestead. Like I said, if you've got questions, leave them below. We're going to have some more chicken videos coming up. And until then, happy homesteading. We will see you next time.